Welcome back to the beginner HTML CSS crash course. In the previous lecture, we've seen some HTML tags we can implement to give a bit of structure to our web page. So with those tags we talked about in the last lecture, you can build a very simple static web page with ease. In this video, we're going to take a look at HTML web forms. So most times you visit a website, you see a login or sign up option or a contact option where you can input some data in order to log in or create accounts or message your admins. So that is what we refer to as forms in HTML. We are going to see how to create a simple form in HTML in this tutorial. So before we go ahead to start creating the HTML form in our file, I want to show you what it looks like. So this here is a form using HTML or CSS. So this is a kind of login form where the user inputs the credentials to log in into the website. You can see there's an option of username, password, login, and you can see an option to also sign up for a new account. So this is what we refer to as forms in HTML. You can also see the sign up page for this login form. So if you want a type of form like this, you can visit the www.net to get the source code for this form. So let's go into our VS Code to see how to create basic forms in HTML and CSS. So in order to create a form in HTML, we need to use the form tag. So all we have to do is form and hit enter. At the moment, you're going to see this action. So we don't need this action at the minute. So this action specifically tells us what to do with the form. So this is for the server-side programming language. So when you sign up using a form, it's going to say, okay, this is the sign up form. I want you to sign the user up, or if it's a login form. So this is what the action attribute signifies. So you can just take that off for now because we do not need this action attribute for now. So all we have to do now is there's just a bit of indenting. So in order to create a HTML form, first we have to specify the form tag, and then the next thing we're gonna talk about is the input type. So this is the input type, is a tag in the HTML. So as you can see, it comes with this attribute type, and for now the attributes here, the value of the attribute is text. So this signifies an input type text. So this tells the browser I want a type of input in this field to be a text input. So that's why we say input type text. So let's preview this in our browser. All we have to do is click on open with live server. Now you can see this text area over here in the browser where we can just, this is the work of the input tag. So over here we can just input something, maybe a username. So this is the work of the input. So let's go back to our code. So the next thing I want to talk about is the ID. So the ID, we're going to give it an ID of username. So the ID is very important, especially when we are using the CSS or the JavaScript. It helps us, it serves as a selector. So we can use this to select a particular tag in our HTML, maybe to style it or to make it do something. So we use this ID a lot during the CSS or in the JavaScript, and it's a very important part of the HTML web forms. So at the moment we just have this text area. So when a user comes to the page, the user doesn't know what to do with this text area or this input field. So the user don't know whether it's for password or for username. So we have to specify that in our code. So the next tag we're going to use is the label tag. So we use a label to label this input area to tell the user, okay, this is for username or this is for password. So how we do that is I will do that above here. Then I will do the label tag here, and you can see label, it says label, and you can see this attribute for. So this is where the ID comes in handy. So we are trying to give it this input type, just this particular input type. So we have to use this ID username in this for attributes. So this is where the ID comes in handy. So all we have to do here is a label for, I will say, username, because this is the ID we gave it. And now we can just say we want this to be our username input field. So we can just give a colon and let's save and preview in our browser. And now you can see this looks much better. You can see username. So when the user comes in here, you can say, okay, here is for username. So I can just type in my username. I can say take the word. So this is how it works. So the next input type we're going to talk about is email. So let's do another input type, and here I want to specify. I say this is an email input field. So I'll say email. So it's much different from the text type. So for the email, if you're using a mobile or modern web browser, it asks you for the @ symbol. So if you just type in a random text, it will not validate that text. So you just need to add a good or a correct email address. So this is what the input type email does. And also we're going to give it an attribute, an ID. Sorry, an ID. I will say the ID is going to be email. Also, we also need a label for this, right? So we're going to give it a label. And the label for is going to be email. And over here, let's specify the email. Let's save and preview. So you can see this email field, and over here we can, so we did an input type email and a label for email, also the ID attributes where we use the email. Also we can also add another attribute over here, which is autocomplete. So sometimes you want to type in something and there is an autocomplete for difference, you can just off it over here. You can just set autocomplete off. This is another form attribute. So let's preview this in our browser. And here you can see we have that email over here, the input field for email, and over here you can go ahead and type in your email. So but at the moment it looks a bit messy because they are just hooked up to the same line. So we can just take this email down here. So how we will do that is to use the break tag in HTML. So we can just come down here and do a break tag, or maybe two, and save. And you can see is a bit nicer now. So we have the username, we have the email. So the next input type I'm going to talk about is the password. So over here we're gonna do an input for, and here is not going to be text, it's going to be password, and you see what the password type does in a bit. And also we're going to give it an ID of password, also a label. So let's say label for password, and we'll say password, and let's save. Now you can see that password field over here, and you can see I'll show you what this password type does in a bit now. So look what it does here. Whenever I type some password, it's kind of not showing it in plain text. So this is a security measure in HTML5. So this is what the password type does in the web forms. Now we can also just put a break tag here to keep it down the line. Save and good. So there are different input types for the HTML web forms. So I'm just going to show you an example of some now. So I'm going to do an input type, and here I'm going to say color. Let's do another. I'm going to input, and I'm going to say date. So let's save this. So you can see this is a color picker. So you can see this is an input in HTML. So you can choose a color here, and for the dates, you can just select a date over here. You can choose your year. You can see in here, and you can choose the month or anything is going to display. So this is an input type in HTML5. So for now, I'm just gonna comment this out. So there are lots of input types in HTML5. You can check that out maybe on Google, make your research and get that as well. So another attribute I want to talk about is the name attribute. So the name attribute works like the ID, but it is very important in the sense that it groups different input fields together. So I'm going to show you how to use the name attribute as we go down. So we're going to talk about it using the radio buttons and HTML. So this is how the radio button looks like. So here you can select, say, choose your favorite web language. You can select HTML, CSS, either of these. So you cannot select two at the same time. And this is possible because of the name attributes we're going to talk about now. So you can see these radio buttons in most websites you visit. Maybe when you say select your gender, you can select for male, female, others. So we're going to see that in our code now. So here in our code, I'm just going to create this H5, and I will say choose your gender on the break tag. And then I'm gonna do the input type. So I'm gonna say input. So the input type here is gonna be radio because we're dealing with the radio buttons. So I'm gonna say input type radio, and over here I'm gonna give it an ID. So an ID of, I'm gonna say male, and here I'm gonna give it a name, and the name is gonna be gender. And next we're gonna give it the value. So this is another attribute in the HTML web forms, a value of male too. So I'm gonna give it a label down here. I'm gonna say label, and it says for male. And then over here, I'm gonna say, okay, let's just male and save. So over here in our browser, you're gonna see that radio button say choose your gender, and it says male. So let's go. So maybe we can just remove this break tag over here. Okay, much nice. So let's go ahead and create two more. So input, again radio, an ID of female, a name of gender, and a value of female. And then for the label, and here female. Oh, okay, let's do the next one, an input. Same again, radio, ID is gonna be other, the name of gender. So as you can see, the names for the three input fields are just the same, and I'm gonna talk about that in a while. So the value is gonna be others. Now let's do a label for that, and let's save. So you can see it over here. We have this male, female, and others. So choose your gender. You can come here, you can select for male, or you can select for female, you can select for others. So if you notice, whenever I click for male, automatically others go off. So others and female go off. So if I click for female, the male and others will go off, and for others, the female and male will go off. So one cannot choose two different gender at once, and this is because of the name attribute we gave it. So if we are to make the name attribute different, it's going to allow us to select two or more, which is not appropriate. So let's go over here and see what we're talking about. So if I come over here, I'll just change this gender. Let's just remove the R and save. Let's come over here, and you can see male. I cannot select for both the female because they have different names, so they're not like linking to each other again, and this works with this. So this is what the name attribute does in the radio buttons. So you can just Control Z and save, and let's make sure it works perfectly. Yeah. So the next input type I'm going to talk about is the checkbox. So for now, let's give this break tag. Now let's go down here. So you may have visited a website where they say, "Do you accept our terms and policy?" And you can see a box there say, "I agree." So that is a checkbox. And we'll see how to do that using the HTML. So let's do the input. And here the input type now is gonna be checkbox. Gonna give it an ID of agree, also a name of agree. And down here I'm gonna give it a label. The label for agree, and the what's going to contain is going to be I agree. So you agree for the terms and condition. So let's save. Now over to our browser, you can see that over here. Maybe do you accept? Yeah, I accept or I agree. So you can click on this checkbox, and you can see it's full now, and you can check this box too. So this is the work of the checkbox in the HTML inputs. So the next we're going to look at is the drop downs or the select tag in HTML. So where you be asked some security questions, so you can select the type of question you want. So that is what the select tag does in the HTML form. So we'll see that in a bit. So let's go. Let's give a label of, and let's call this label question. And here I'm gonna say security. No, not here. Security question. Yeah. So now we're gonna do the select tag, and here it comes with this attribute name and ID. So we can give the ID as question, the name as question, and the ID as question also. And here I'm gonna just make it down. So this select is going to contain different questions, so you can just select the particular question you want, an answer. So we do that using the option value in HTML, the option tag. So all you have to do is option, and we'll say the value for the option should be, let's say, question 1, and it's gonna say what is your best food, and let's save and let's preview for the moment. So you can see what this looks like. Say security question, and you can see what is your best food. Now we can click on this drop down and it will bring a list of questions for us, but at the moment we just have this, what is your best food, so I can just select it. So let's add more options here. So for the next one, I'm gonna do another option and give it a question 2 and say best language, and the option 3, I'll give it a question 3 Q3, so we can see favorite color. Save and let's preview. So now you can see it's over here. When I click on this drop down, you can see best language and see favorite color, and when I click on this, it's gonna appear here. So the user can just select the particular question and then go ahead to answer below. So this is how the drop down or the select tag works in HTML. So at the moment we can just create a kind of input field here. So when the user selects something like what is your best food, user can come here and say noodles or something. So let's do that in our HTML code. So here I'm just gonna give this break tag and save. So let's go down here and let's do a label for the answer. We're gonna give this answer and we'll say security question together answer. Now we're gonna do an input field for that. So input, and it should be a text because we're gonna be typing a text over there, and it's gonna have an ID of answer, and let's give it a name of answer, and let's save it. So let's preview. Okay, now we can just add another break tag over there. So now because it says what is your best food, and we can change his best language, and I can just say English over here. So this is how it works, the select tag or the drop down in HTML. So the next input, so the next form field I'm going to talk about in this video is the text area. So the text area allows us to input large amounts of text. So when you visit some websites and you want to drop some comments, sometimes comment box is made up of the text area, or maybe a bio where you can put up your bio. So that is an example of the text area. So let's see that in a bit over here. So I'll add another break tag here, and then for the text area you can see this attributes, aside name and ID. You can see these columns and rows. So this columns and rows stands for columns and rows. So this represents how many columns we want and how many rows we want. So basically the width and the height of the text area. So you can just amend it and put whatever value you want, maybe 20 here, and I'll leave the rows as 10. And for the ID, for the name I want to put bio, and the ID bio. and I'll save it. So let's see what this looks like. So you can see this is how the text field looks like. So let's go ahead, and over here you can put maybe a default parameter, something like enter your bio, and save. And when you preview here, you can see it's enter your bio here, and when you try to type, it just adds on with the enter your bio, so it's not looking nice, but we're going to use an alternative for this. So let's go ahead and create a label for this text area. So over here I'm going to do label, and I'm going to say bio for the 4 attributes. And over here I'm going to say your bio, and save this. I'm gonna just get rid of this. And so the attribute I'm going to show you next is the placeholder. So the placeholder works like the label, telling a user what the user is supposed to input in that particular form field. So but a bit nicer. So let's just find this placeholder, and I'm going to say enter your bio. Okay, save it. And over here I just want to put a break tag here, and let's preview now. So over here you can see your bio for the label, and you can see for the placeholder it says, you can see this dim text, it says enter your bio, so the user knows that okay, here I should enter my bio. And when the user start typing, let's just type, you can see it just disappears, and when the user goes off, it comes back. So this is another nice attribute, which is a placeholder. So you can also specify a placeholder for the username, the email, and the password, telling the user what to put in these various form fields. So I'm just gonna do that. So over here I'm just gonna hold the alt key on Windows, and I'm gonna use my cursor to click on the places I want to edit, and here I can just space, and I'll say place holder. And now the placeholder has to be different, so for here I'm gonna just say username. Okay, oh okay, let's just username. And for the email I'm gonna say your email, and for the password I'm gonna say password. And let's save, preview, and you can see that placeholder over here, username, email, and password. So when the user comes here, the user knows what to do with this input fields. So this is what the placeholder does in the HTML web forms. So the last form field I'm going to talk about in this video is the submit button. So after building this form, and the user can just log in or sign up, the user also needs to submit that form. So that is what the submit button actually does. So here I'm just gonna give a BR tag to give a bit of space, and here I'm gonna see an input is gonna be submit, and over here I'm gonna give it a value of submit the form. So this is gonna be the value inside that button. Now you can see that over here, you can see submit the form. So whenever a user submits the form, the browser takes this action over here, and that will serve as a reference for the back-end processing. But as we said, you're not going to make use of the form action, form attributes, and the action attributes for now. So let's save this first, and whenever we submit the form, all these values are just gonna be placed over here on the URL section. So let's just go ahead and fill up these form fields. And for the username, I can just say tech. For the password, And then for the password, and you can just choose something here. I agree. The security questions, I'm just gonna ignore that for now. I'm just gonna submit the form. And you can see all those over here. The password is just this gibberish, the gender male, um, every other thing are being placed here on the URL section. So there's something else I want to show you. There's a bit of validation that comes with this input fields in HTML5. So over here, check, and for the email, let's just do something like this. And when I hit enter to submit, or just click on the submit the form, you can see it says please include an art in the email. So this is a kind of validation feature in the HTML5. So all you have to do is make that right by adding that art sign over there, and that should work. You say okay, a part following should not contain the symbol. So this is also part of the validation. So let's just go with the original email we use and take, and you can see we just get that on. So if you notice, we skipped some areas of this form like the password and other places, but we still get that form submitted. So I want to also talk about something else in the HTML5. So we can set up some places to be required. So some required sections say, okay, username, there must be a username here, there must be an email, and there must be a password. So we can set that up in our HTML code. So all we have to use is the required attribute. So over here for the username, we can just say required. Also for the email, you will need the email to be required, and then the password should be required. And let's save that and see it in a bit. So over here, I'm gonna see check, and I'm gonna skip the email and then password, and just submit this form. And you can see it says please fill in this field. So this is the work of the required. It requires us to fill in this particular field, and let's do that and hit enter. You can see it went through. All these other fields went through because we didn't specify them to be required. So that is the work of the required attributes in HTML5. Now this is the basic knowledge you need to create a simple HTML form. So you can go ahead and try out a simple project creating a simple HTML forms with just this form fields like the input type text, email, password, and the radio buttons, the checkbox, the select, and the text area, and others. So in this video, we have seen some common types of input fields in HTML5: the password, the username, which is the text, email, the radio buttons, the text area, and the select. And we also seen how to use the label tag, and the ID attribute, and also the name attributes in the form field. And also we also talked about what the action button, the action attribute is, and how the forms are being submitted and validated. So that will be all for this video, and in the next video we'll continue with the beginner HTML or CSS crash course.